It's Thunderground Thursday, and YouTube analytics tell me that most people don't make it past a minute of my Thunderground Thursday videos. So before you go, I'm going to challenge you. If you can listen to the song I'm going to link to you and not decide that you love this artist and want to learn more, then you're free to go. It's off the album Bossa Buenos Aires by the artist Coughlin, and the song is called El Pinamar. Now I'm going to describe this song later, but for right now, listen to it. And if you don't hear Tame Impala meets Charli XCX in Argentina, then I don't know what to tell you, bud. It is a great song on a very, very good album. And I want you to learn more about it with me, okay? Good. You heard it, right? Isn't it exciting? Didn't you hear those rhythms? Didn't you get that awesome, complicated head nod feeling? Okay, I'm gonna get back to that song later. But for now, let me just talk a little bit about why I picked this album. There's been a lot of good albums this week. I listen to hundreds of albums a month, And especially for Thunderground Thursday, I'm always looking for things that are a little bit offbeat. This was at the very end of the new music feed on Tidal. And I just listened to this one song, and that's what drew me into it. But there are a lot of blocks to why you wouldn't want to listen to this. It's part of what I'm trying to do in my life and in this channel is to fight what I call and what is linguistic imperialism, the dominance of those who are born with English language coming out of their mouth. It is a imperialism like any other, but it is linguistic. You'll see I'm in my new office here. It's not quite set up. I'm now the chair of my department, although I should say very carefully, I do not represent my college or my department. I am an individual in all ways on this channel, and I have never represented in any way the place where I work. But still, I'm now in charge of the languages department, so I've been thinking about, I need to challenge myself more, not just listen to French and English, things I understand, because what ends up happening is when you break free of the English hegemony, you discover all this great culture and all this great music that's sort of hidden from us, and that we just sort of force the rest of the world to come to us. We just expect English to be the default. Okay, so Argentinian. I don't know much about Argentinian music, so I was a little bit intimidated by this album. So I thought, well, I'll go out and I'll just read about it. I listened to it once, and I formed my thoughts. And then I went out and I was like, okay, so my initial thoughts were, this is cool. It's kind of like hyper pop. I'm getting a little bit of Charli XCX, a little bit of A.G. Cook, a little bit of 100 Gex, a little bit of Tame Impala, a little bit of maybe even Panda Bear in there. I kind of get all this feeling together, but I don't know. Maybe this is some part of some long Argentinian tradition, and this is very typical sounding music. So I had to look, and I ended up finding an article in Spanish on a website called indihoy.com. And that's, I read enough Spanish. And all in there, this guy's talking. I guess he's a 26-year-old guy, lives in Buenos Aires, sort of describes his music, And he says all those things I just said, Panda Bear, Charli XCX. He also mentions the Beach Boys. And I will say there's an entire class of music that doesn't sound like the Beach Boys, but the people making the music love the Beach Boys. That's some of my favorite music. This fits in that. And the way you can tell is just the quality of production, the attention to detail, and a sort of epic naivete, I would say, that Beach Boys always managed to have, and that happened here. So here I am, I'm all kind of confirmed. I had to look up the name. It's very bizarre. Coghlan is the name of the artist. His real name is Eugenio Garcia Carles. So Coghlan is the name of a subway stop in Argentina, because Coghlan was the name of an Irish architect in Buenos Aires. So I guess that's where he gets his name. It's part of Argentina's long and sometimes checkered history of European immigration. So there I am, and I've got this kind of concept of what it's about, but I still don't know about the lyrics, I can understand Spanish well enough when it's spoken, but here there's so much auto-tune, there's so much sung that I don't quite get it. So I just figure I'll find the guy on Twitter. I'll just send him a message. And he responded. Do you know how rare that is, that artists respond to me? And I asked him sort of what the album is about. What would he want to communicate to people like me who don't speak Spanish fluently about what the album is about? So here's what he said. I'm reading off the DMs. There's a vague concept around the city of Buenos Aires. Okay? Lyrics revolve around past memories, dreaming in the middle of the dance floor. And this is the thing. I could listen to this album, and I completely understood that it was about dreaming in the middle of a dance floor without having understood the words at all. In my own musical and aesthetic obsessions, the Beach Boys, Ibiza, Thanthet, Panda Bear, Charli XCX, walking on Longfield, riding bikes, kind of teenagey, I should say. It's kind of cryptic all the way through. I make use of non-linear way of writing, mixing past, present, and future tenses in the same verse, so it's a little nonsensy even to my friends. So there you go. It all kind of makes sense. I don't think you need to understand every word to understand what he's trying to get at here. That sense of a sort of lost in the dance floor, kind of a sweeping party, but at the same time kind of introspective. He used the word psychoanalytico quite often in that interview, so I assume he's talking about it's fairly self-reflective as well. So let's get to the music, okay? Let's get to the stamp, which is my homework. I've already asked you to listen to it once, but you liked it enough that you want to hear it again. So there it is again. El Pinamar. No, En Pinamar, which I assume means in Pinamar. I assume Pinamar is a place with pineapples near the ocean, but I don't know what Pinamar means. This song is just so good. I mean, it starts off with those blasted flanging keyboards, and then these sweeping synthesizers cover, and those weird auto-tune howls, and then that crazy, awesome syncopated drum line that changes throughout and does that thing that Tame Impala does so well, especially on their last album, or his last album, whatever, is creating those kinds of rhythms that do what I call the complicated head nod. You know, it's not the which is fine. I'm talking about the you know, like where you're like just trying to catch up to it. And it's just like dance song that's also complicated to dance to. Now, I don't know if that's part of the South American tradition. If you ever want to see something funny, watch me trying to dance to any traditional South American music. I'm like, I can't move my hips the right way. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to go as far as to say, oh, clearly this shows the influence of Argentinian music, because I have no idea. What I will say is it's a great and complicated dance song, you know, and it's so well layered. And it's just like a bass line will come in and go out, and it's like gentle and smart and strong. A very subtle bridge that leads into the last verse where the auto-tune melody gets a little bit more complicated. And then at the end, he has a little keyboard solo. It kind of shows off that he has some, you know, some actual chops. And then this cool arpeggiated keyboard going up. I would say the entire album really follows after this. It's a really good album. It's really, really good. And this sets it off well. And that leads right into the next song, El Último Baile, which I think means The Last Dance, I hope. Unless my Spanish isn't that good. Pineapple by the sea. Someday I'm going to go to Buenos Aires and eat pineapple by the ocean. Even though I don't think they grow pineapples in Argentina. I think it's an equatorial thing. Okay, back to the song. El Último Baile. So this starts off with these great piano blasts, which I'm enough of a video game nerd that I thought it was a sample from a certain sound in Legend of Zelda. Da, 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 da. But it just develops really nicely, great piano. It's just so well produced. And the whole song, like, it actually reminds me of Daft Punk in a lot of ways. Not in the way it sounds, but the way it feels. And it's just these great little production details, like these strings come along. And in the interview, on indiehoy.com, he talks about watching Twin Peaks, and he quotes, "Stand alone on the rim of the volcano and do your dance." And I think that is what he is trying to say about this music, you know. UFO Point is the next song, a little bit more upbeat, cool tinkling keyboards, has kind of like a breakdown. It's almost like a house song, you know. This kind of cool, like, auto-tuned sound as well with the singing. Again, it does remind me a lot of what I like about Charli XCX. But, you know, the thing about Charli XCX is she's always on that, like, is it pop or is it indie? Is it pop or is it indie? This is very indie, but it's really good. I also found a quote from Coughlin that I like about Charli XCX. So he was listing off all of his inspirations, you know. And then he said the following line. Forgive my accent. Charli XCX, que está con un cohete en el culo todo el tiempo. I learned Spanish listening to the radio in Los Angeles. So I knew that cohete en el culo todo el tiempo means something in her butt all the time. Now in English we had the expression have a stick up your butt, which means you're kind of uptight, like me trying to dance to South American music. Okay? But it turns out cohete means a rocket. So that's the way that Coughlin's describing Charli XCX's music. And I think that's a great way to describe her music, and a good way to describe what Coughlin is doing in here, right? Creating this music where you have a rocket up your butt. In French, we have the expression péter le plomb, which means farting lead, kind of a similar concept. A lot of butt-related slang in many different languages. And these are the things you can learn when you break out of the linguistic hegemony of English. Great breakdown to the end of the song, UFO point, with these words repeated and like twisted up the octaves. And then we get to the song Joven Guarda, which I hope means the new guard or the young guard, but who knows. The funny thing is, all my colleagues are like next door, you know? All my colleagues in Spanish are right there. I could ask them. And then again, the whole discussion about the history of Argentina. And you know. So Joven Guarda is this great song where it's got these great polyrhythms with like a real piano and auto-tuned voices. It's almost like a gentle lullaby. What's cool is he's using his natural voice. I don't think it's auto-tuned or pitched up or kind of distorted. And then he's joined by one of my favorite artists I've discovered on this channel, Juan Wouters, W-A-U-T-E-R-S. I've done a couple of videos on Juan before, and just he has this really gentle, fragile, engaging voice that goes so well with Coughlin. And it's just this great song. When I saw that song was on the album, that's when I said I have to review this. Because first of all, we had this great first song, and then second of all, we have the appearance of Juan Wouters. Am I supposed to say Waters or Wouters? I don't know. If you know, put it in the comments. Next song is called Santa Lucia, or Santa Lucia. Lucia, I think I pronounced it like Lucia, yeah. Arpeggiated sounds one on top of another. It ends up kind of dropping out and being kind of sparse. It's sort of like an Aphex Twinish sort of instrumental song, quite nice. Which then goes into a total departure. Los Flores de M, which is, I suppose means the flowers DM. I don't know what DM means. Depeche Mode, maybe? I think it's Depeche Mode. I think it might be Depeche Mode, because this is like a 90s, 80s, like uplifting rock song. It has this cool drum loop. It's basically like not avant-garde. It's basically not hyperpop. It's basically just a straight up rock song. But this is the thing. This is the thing about this whole album, you know. I'm driving on my way to work, you know. Today, I'm leading my first meeting as a chair of a department, which is a lot of responsibility. It's not as... the Netflix show about being a chair of a department does not quite reflect my experience, but private versus public institution. But, you know, it's a lot of work being chair. It's very nerve-wracking, you know, navigating through a lot of different, you know, administrative structures and all that. And so I got all these things in my head, and I had to go to this meeting, a couple hundred people as well, where I have to just kind of sit there and listen to people talk about our budget crisis, or everyone's in a budget crisis, all that stuff. I got all these kind of like negative things happening in my head. And then the song comes on, and I'm driving to school, and like the sun's out. And even though I've got all these worries, and I'm like nervous, and I'm like not feeling great about everything, because like I got so much to do, and assessment data to work out, and adjuncts to hire, and all these things, this song comes on, and I'm just like driving through the pathetic pseudo-exurbia of Rochester, New York, just driving, and the sun's going, and I'm just as happy as I can possibly be. This is a ridiculously sunny and happy album. You know, I just reviewed the Lord album, and this is actually a sunnier and happier album than that album, and that album was entirely dedicated to the god of the sun, more or less. Just a beautiful, wonderful song. We then get to Despice en los Valles, which is the most kind of 100 Gexy songs on here, with arpeggiated keyboard, very fast, beats per minute. Great drum breakdowns, just great drums in general, kind of compressed and futuristic. Then later it has this great kind of waka waka helicopter breakdown. If you're interested in the sort of hyper pop aspect of what Coughlin can do, and it seems like Coughlin can do a lot of things, this is definitely the song for you. 9 p.m. is the next song. 9 p.m. I don't know. And then the next song is called Monte Carlo, kind of a underwater voice, almost kind of hip-hop beat. Kind of reminds me of sort of like West Coast funk. So really, I mean, it doesn't, Coughlin's not like running around trying to do all different kinds of styles, but it's not ever stuck in one thing. Then 9 p.m. has what I call a sort of planetarium arpeggio keyboard, where you kind of feel like you're in a science museum. A little bit more straightforward pop. The song develops really nicely with these kind of like stabbing keyboards and burpy keyboards, very well layered over the general washing keyboards, you know, underneath. And then it ends with Nueva Alianza, which I assume means New Alliance. Again, gentle rising keyboards, kind of a shuffling song. I wish I knew the lyrics here. This one's really nice. This might be the most interesting vocals on the album. Again, I was driving to work, and I was like, how do I describe the melody on this song? And I was going through all these different words, and I just landed on mysterious. It's a mysterious melody, because I don't quite, like the whole time I'm listening to it, I don't quite know where it's going. And that's a cool thing, you know? Cool instrumental breakdown to end it. These sounds, kind of these drumsticks, and just a reminder that at the heart of all this, I would say even more than the influences I've mentioned, you know, Tame Impala, Charli XCX, 100 gecs, there's a rhythmic interest throughout this album that just makes it super strong. So there you go. That's your job, okay? Listen to Bossa Buenos Aires by Coughlin. Get over the fact you don't understand all the words. Put yourself in the position of the 7.5 billion people whose first language is not English, who have to listen to nothing but English, or so much English, and they don't quite understand the words. Just put yourself in that position and allow yourself to reap the benefits. Okay, I have to print out the agenda for today's meeting. Wish me luck. Wish me luck in the comments. All right, there's the camera.